favorite tools in the IT industry, specifically when we're talking about hosting, is a platform called EasyPanel. There have been some miscommunications, or maybe more like unmet expectations, or maybe unset expectations that were missed, or mismanaged expectations, whatever you want to call it, with how the pricing of EasyPanel works out. But even at its free tier, which is still available, you do get a lot of power with the platform. And the paid tier is not even that expensive, and you still get way more than I think you realize when you get it. One of the most important things to know when you're dealing with EasyPanel is that it is not a cPanel or web application, website server application, or something like that. There's no, it's not a management tool for websites. It's not a management tool for a server. What it is it is a management tool that sits on top of a technology called Docker Swarm. Now, if you're familiar with virtualization and you're familiar with Docker, then you'll already know what that means. I'm not going to go into the deep technical underlying schematics or infrastructure on how Docker works. But the important thing to know is that essentially within Docker is a technology that containerizes, and it creates literally containers of pieces of code, or microservices is what they call, but essentially it's a code bundle or application or service that runs within an isolated environment. That's why it's called a container, within a specific single physical machine. So it virtualizes a workload called a microservice or whatever that runs isolated from the host and from each other. Okay. And so Docker Swarm specifically is an add-on or an extension of Docker that allows you to maintain a cluster of physical machines to run containers across multiple different systems, physical systems. So, and again, I'm trying to avoid getting too deep into the technology here, because it's not the point. The point is I wanted to show you EasyPanel, but you need to have an understanding of how it works, because the most common misunderstanding that I see with EasyPanel is people get onto it like, oh, where can I configure my reverse proxy? Can I set up my, can I do VPN? Can I do custom SSL certificates? Can we do forwarding rules or whatever? Like, how come I have an exposed port on the system? These are common questions that I see all the time within the EasyPanel community. And it drives me crazy because they're not an EasyPanel question. That is I'm managing a server question, right? If you expose a port on the system, that port is available from the internet. That's how it works. If you want to do a VPN or reverse proxy, you need something to do that reverse proxy and or VPN or whatever. And again, EasyPanel is a management interface to something called Docker Swarm, and that's basically it. Now, with that being said, the developer of EasyPanel has been making, or maybe I should say the development team. I don't even know if he actually extended the team or not, but they've been making a lot of good progress bringing in feature requests from people who don't understand the system and are asking for these kinds of web server-like functionality. And it's not like it's impossible, it's just not what the platform was designed to do initially. And so people come in expecting something, and it's not even that they're submitting a feature request, they just come in saying, how come I can't do this? So I want to show you around, I want to take you around the panel. I'm going to go from the beginning, start to end, a setup of EasyPanel. I want to showcase how I secure EasyPanel every single time. It doesn't matter how big or small or whatever. I do this every single time. I follow the same steps. Number one is I deploy it. Number two is I deploy a Cloudflare tunnel. And number three is I block all inbound ports. The only thing allowed in is what's available from Cloudflare. And I'm going to show you how that works. And then we'll go through some of the templates, and we're going to go through some of the things around EasyPanel that I really like. So with that being said, let me go ahead and share my screen. We are going to be using Linode like usual. And I'm just going to show you what this looks like There we go. You can see my Linode. So I'm inside Linode. I went to create a new Linode. Instead of it doing a distribution, I'm in a marketplace. I search for ease. So it finds EasyPanel. I select it. And then it's showing me the EasyPanel image. It's going to use Ubuntu 2204. I'm going to go on the Newark, New Jersey data center. And I'm just going to pick the 4 GB memory and 2 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM, 80 gig disk. Like, this is plenty. I can run so many things on this because of the containerization and because it's meant to run lightweight microservices. The only thing that you may run into is potentially a lack of memory, and you can upgrade it, right? But when I show you the templates that exist and what you can do with it, there's literally no reason. If you're a managed services provider, you're an IT person, you're in-house team, there is zero reason for you to not spend the $36, secure the platform, and just roll things out as you need it, depending on what it is that you need. And I'll show you what that means exactly. So for right now, we're going to go and we're going to label this EasyPanel YouTube demo. And we're going to grab a password from my root password. I'm just going to generate a random password, and I'm not going to bother saving it because I'm not going to use it again. And we're going to go ahead and hit create Linode. Okay, so at this point, Linode is creating. I'm going to go ahead in the meantime, I'm going to open up Cloudflare, and we're going to jump into Cloudflare. I'm going to start creating the backend connection of what we're going to need. The way this is going to work is I have a GitHub repo where all it does is it just runs a single Docker file. And if you open that Docker file, you can see it's just pulling the Cloudflare container, the tunnel container, and it's going to run the command to do that. The reason why I do it this way is because the tunnel, the Cloudflare container doesn't have the ability to run these commands from within EasyPanel. I don't have the ability to pass these commands in as arguments. So the only way to do it is by using a Docker file that will handle the argument passing and so on. That may have changed since we first designed it this way, but because it's here, it's always using the latest version. I don't have to worry about it, and I remember how to do it by heart, so it's not something I actually care about or think about or change too much. With that being said, it looks like our EasyPanel deployment is done. Notice that I didn't do anything, right? I didn't pause the recording. I just told it to go, and then I went. And now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open this up in a new tab, and let's see what happens. It may not have finished loading yet. It says connection refused. That's not a timeout. And so we need to go to port 3000, which is the default port for EasyPanel. And so we're just going to let that load and see if it comes up. In the meantime, let's go ahead and pull up Cloudflare here. And let's start setting up Cloudflare. So I'm going to bring Cloudflare into my screen share. And the way you do this is within your Cloudflare account, what's my Rising Tide Consulting account, you go into where you would see your list of domains. Instead of actually going into a domain, there's a section called Zero Trust. I'm not going to show you that section in Cloudflare because it's a shared account and there's other stuff there that I don't necessarily want you to see. So we're going to go into Access, and then we're going to go to Tunnels. And from here, we're just going to create a tunnel. And the name of the tunnel that we're going to do is going to be YouTube EasyPanel, YouTube demo EasyPanel, or whatever. The name doesn't matter. It's just an identifier for you. And we're going to save that tunnel. At this point, it's going to give you something called a token, or really an install command, which includes a token. I'm going to go ahead and grab that. Now, it doesn't matter what OS that I'm running on. So I have it chosen where I can choose the operating system. I can do Docker, and it gives me the command for Docker. I can do Windows, and it gives me the command for Windows, Mac, Debian. The thing that makes a difference for me is that token. I'm just going to copy this so I get the token out. At this point, let's go see if EasyPanel has come up yet. And it's here, right? And so now we're at the point where we're going to set up EasyPanel. I'm going to generate another password that, again, I'm not going to use. I'm not going to save. And we're going to just do mendy@risingtidegroup.net. And we're going to save that. And I don't care about this because I already am signed up multiple times. And we are in, okay? I'm not saving that password. Notice that I don't even know what password I used to log in. That's probably a bad thing. I probably should have saved that password at this point. Let's see if it's here. Let's try that again. I may just have to redo this. Okay, that's fun. Let's see if I can. There you go. Okay, I know what the password is. It's a little ridiculous, but I do know what it is. Actually, I'll just tell you why not. The password is the entire Cloudflare install command. This entire thing. Apparently, I never copied the password out of the generator, so that's fun. In this case, I'm on the free plan, right? So I don't have a license. I have the ability to create up to 3 projects. So we can do project 1 and project 1, and I can create another project called project 2. And if I try to create another project, what's going to happen is it's going to say after 3, that was meant to be 3. Boom, you have to buy a license. The free license limited 3 projects, right? So it's not as good as it used to be back in the day. The free license was unlimited. If you're still on an older version that's unlimited, just build a bunch of projects and then upgrade. Don't tell them I said that. But in all honesty, the license is absolutely worth the product that you get. And I'm going to show you that in a moment. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and delete these projects because I don't want to be using project 1, 2, and 3 in my thing. I actually want to label them appropriately. So we're going to go ahead and remove that, and we're going to remove this and remove this. And now we are going to do the very first thing we're going to say that I discussed we're going to do is set up Cloudflare access. We're going to create the Cloudflare project. We're going to add a service. Okay. So when we're talking about Docker here, Docker Swarm, as a swarm, there is a group of containers that run, and this group is now managed by a manager, and it's told to run on a specific cluster. So because think of a project name as like the host name of the physical box, except it's not physical because it's a swarm. It can run anywhere. It's in a cluster. So the host name of any application that you're running is going to be the project name with an underscore, and then the name of the service, right? And that's the host name that's going to be used. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go into app, and I'm going to call this Cloudflare. I'm just going to call it tunnel, actually, right? And so now I've got a container tunnel running. Now, EasyPanel does a bunch of neat stuff. I can come up here and I can upload code directly. I can reference code from a GitHub or a Docker image, sorry, a Git repository or GitHub or a Docker image, and it'll just download that code, unpack it, deploy it according to the Docker file or Nixpacks or whatever, and it will run that code within the container. 2 things about it. The container has to be set to not exit. It has to be running and stay running like a service so that the container stays up. And then number 2 is that it cannot be interactive because it's meant to be running in a backend service. There's no real interactiveness for you to deal with. That's not even a real word, but you get my point. So in this case, as soon as you deploy a container in EasyPanel, it starts to run and listens on port 80, which is a default port that gets bound to under the domains so that you can direct traffic into the container, okay? Going back to the point about virtualization and port forwarding and network access and all that other stuff, okay? There is no access to a container without going through the host's network. And in order for you to access the container's network, the port has to be exposed onto the host. End of story. EasyPanel makes this pretty easy. Pun not intended. I mean, completely by accident, but I guess intended. And it allows you to just say port 80 is this classic port, or port 443, 80 or 443 from the host perspective can be exposed into a port, any port you want, like 3000 or whatever, any one of the standard ports, with inside the guest, or what we call a container, right? And now what this will do is it'll expose on the host, port 443 will redirect. It's not really a reverse proxy, but it just works the same way. We'll direct the traffic internally to the container. Now, in reality, I said it's not really a reverse proxy. It actually is. Using Trafic and some other stuff, it secures the connection using Let's Encrypt and reverse proxies. But all that aside, when we're talking about Docker raw, it's not a reverse proxy. It's just this port is mapped to that port, and so on. In this case, specifically for domains, it is doing it's using Trafic, and so the ports, it does get reverse proxied into the container port, and it gets protected by Let's Encrypt unless you toggle this off. And it uses port 80, you toggle it on, it uses port 443, and then it does Let's Encrypt certificate generation automatically. The path will be the internal URL. So if your internal web server application is running on /app, then you need to specify /app here, and then it goes there. You can say this is app-tunnel whatever, and then we can add another one, and we can say this is admin-tunnel whatever, and this can go to admin, right? Now, whatever folder your web server inside the container is exposed is what you need to specify here, because you are telling port 443 with host admin-tunnel is going to go into the container port 80 on the path /admin. If you do not have your app listening on port 80, out of the box, I think Ruby and Node will use port 3000. I think Python may use something similar, like depending on the code that you're using, the code base that you're using. It's completely up to you what port you want to configure it inside. But it doesn't have to be 80. It can be 3000. It could be 8080. It could be 443, and it could be you're doing a certificate inside of your container. But that certificate will never be exposed because of the reverse proxy in front, Trafic, which is doing the connection publicly to your app. Okay. The only thing that makes a difference is you just have to make sure that your internal port that you specified here is actually the port that your application is listening to, and then the path that you're connecting to is the path that your application is being exposed on. In this case, because we're talking about Cloudflare Tunnel, we're not exposing anything. We're just going to remove that, and save. We are not going to have any domain. I'm going to stop the app completely, and I'm going to give it some parameters to deploy. So we're going to go to the General tab. We're going to go to GitHub, and I'm going to say the owner is Rising Tide Group. Right? I know this because the GitHub that is no longer open was Rising Tide Group. The repository was Cloudflare. And the branch was main. The build path is /. So it's going to get deployed to the very root of the system. We go to source up. We see the source has been updated, and now it wants me to use the deploy button. What this is going to do is it's going to pull the image down from GitHub. So we're going to go ahead and hit deploy, and we're going to see, boom, this is the latest note from my GitHub, and we can view it, and we can see the deployment details. It loaded Docker ignore, it downloaded the Cloudflare tunnel, and then it's naming it and tagging it, and then it's done. Right, so now this app is deployed. At this point, I need to do one more thing. I need to set an environment variable, and this is going to be tunnel_token. And again, I have these in the notes of the GitHub repo, so you can go look at it. And then we're going to say equals, and we're just going to paste the token that was on the install command. Right, I'm skipping everything before, and I'm just grabbing the token, the second line, and on. We're adding that in here, and I'm going to go ahead and hit save, and we're just going to redeploy this again. And I'm going to go ahead and hit start. Okay, so now we can see the registered tunnel. We're up and running. It's green. It's running. We can see the memory usage, the network I/O, and CPU usage of this specific container. Here we've got a log that'll show the running log of the container itself. All right. Again, these are not like websites or anything like that. It is literally a virtualized system. It's running on a whole new OS, technically speaking. And again, it gets way more complicated than that, but I'm just trying to underline the differences and set expectations of how it's supposed to work like this. And then from here, if we go to the Cloudflare thing, we can scroll down and we can see, hey, look, we have our connector is connected with the version 2024.1.2. It's the latest version. At this point, I can go to next, and we can start configuring our routes. Cloudflare is just like any other reverse proxy to an extent. I've deployed a tunnel, which is creating a VPN between my EasyPanel instance, which is the entire host, and Cloudflare. There's now a private connection. And I'm going to say to Cloudflare, when you get traffic for a specific host name, we're going to say EasyPanel-demo, and we'll use a domain risingtideconsulting.group. That's it. Then route the traffic to HTTPS. In reality, it's HTTP because I'm connecting over HTTP, and it's :3000. Now, when we specify an address here, right, we're going to bring this back to the point that this is a containerized system. If I use the host name localhost, what's going to happen is you're going to be stuck within the container. I don't think I have a console that I can run here. Yeah, I don't have a console I can run here. That was the reason why I had a problem with the passing the arguments in and why I had to build my own Docker file in the first place. So I can't show this to you right now on this container. I can show you to in other containers. But if I were to do a lookup of localhost, it's going to return the container private network IP, not the host IP. There's no way for me to get to the host unless I specify the host's actual interface IP address, the public interface IP address. In this case, because I'm on Linode, that IP address is my public IP. This server is running directly on the internet. My adapter IP address is the public IP. So I'm just going to copy the one from here, and I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to specify 3000. Okay. When or if you're running EasyPanel locally or on an internal system, if you're running it on your own server, which you can absolutely do, you need to make sure that you're specifying the one for the actual interface IP address. In that case, it may be a private IP address, 192.168.1.25, 10.1.1.30, or something like that. It would be a private interface IP. It's only when you're running in the cloud, and only when the cloud specifies the public IP address on the adapter is when you use the public IP address within this setup. I am on the wrong tunnel. Where did my tunnel go? Let's go to page 2. Here it is. Let's go in here and we can go to our host name and we can see this exists. Now, if I were to open up this host name, I am inside EasyPanel and you can see I'm HTTPS secured, and I can go ahead and grab my password, a ridiculously long password, and paste that in, and I'm in. And you can see it's the exact same system that I was in earlier. I've got my Cloudflare set up. I've got my system here. These two are exactly the same, right? And you can even see here that the configuration was updated in the log when we pushed the new service, right? So if the host name easypanel-demo.risingtideconsulting.group is going to service HTTP public IP :3000, okay? Now that we've done that, we want to secure the actual VM itself. This is still not secure. Anyone can hit this. They can just SSH in and so on. I'm going to go back to Linode, and I'm going to go to the network, and we're going to go to the firewalls, and we're going to assign a firewall, if I can do it from here. It doesn't look like I can. So I'm just going to copy this tag, and we're going to go to our firewalls here, and we're going to block all inbound. And we're just going to add a Linode to this. Yeah, we're going to add a Linode to the firewall, and that Linode is going to be EasyPanel YouTube demo and add. Okay. Now that we've done that, we have this added in. If I go to EasyPanel here and try to reload and refresh or whatever, we should see things start to fail. It may take a moment for the firewall to provision, but notice it's no longer loading, right? And at some point, I'm going to get our connection refused because the Linode firewall in place is blocking all inbound traffic. At the same time, I can go to EasyPanel here and load it, and it runs just fine. Like this one's still spinning. This one loaded, no problem. I can come in here, I can see the logs and so on and so forth. The only thing to keep in mind is that if Cloudflare were to stop, if this tunnel were to stop functioning, I lose access to the entire platform. Okay, so in that situation, I would then have to go back to Linode and remove or grant specific access here, like I have on my public IP here, which is no longer my public IP. So I'm just going to remove that and save changes. I would have to grant specific access on my inbound rules so that I can then reach the other main or normal or non-proxied way of accessing the control panel. And from there, I can go and check out what's going on with the tunnel. With that being said, I've been running this setup for probably a year now, if not more. And I've done multiple upgrades and reboots and so on of the Linode. And every single time, it may take a little longer than you expect, maybe 5 minutes or so. But every single time the tunnel came back up and I was always able to get back into EasyPanel using Cloudflare without having to manually reopen up access. Okay. Now that we've discussed the basics and the foundation and EasyPanel, whatever, let's go through and create another project. In this case, I'm going to create a project for documentation. Let's say, you know what? I'm actually going to do one more thing. I'm going to create a diagnostics project, let's say. Now, projects can be used for grouping and organizing, but remember, they're actually the part of the host name that gets used. And we're going to show you that in a moment. In this case, for diagnostics, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to say, well, I have a ton of templates that I can use. Look at it. I mean, I can scroll on forever. These, again, are templates that are created and maintained by specific people doing this for EasyPanel within the community and official EasyPanel people themselves that work to package up existing containerized applications into an easy to deploy system within EasyPanel. Okay, and this is where it gets confusing because I like to say simplicity breeds stupidity. And EasyPanel is taking a very complex technology and slapping it inside of a very, or wrapping it, maybe is a better word, inside of a very easy button, or that was easy staples button, that allows you to quickly deploy things that would normally require you to have technical understanding and technical knowledge. And so it's masking some of that technical expertise that you need, which causes a lot of people to get confused about how it's supposed to be used and what it's for. So in this case, I'm going to come in here. I'm going to say, well, I want to make sure that I'm monitoring and diagnosing and seeing the logs of things that's going on, right? It's very nice that I can see that log here, but if the log file gets too big, I can only see 50 lines, like I'm caching it into my browser memory as it streams real time, you know, so it's not 100% going to be stable, and depending on how big and how fast, it can be hard. In here, I'm going to go to templates, and there's a template called Dozzle, I believe, and we're just going to deploy that template. Dozzle is a lightweight web-based Docker log viewer designed for real-time monitoring and easy troubleshooting. Perfect. I'm going to leave username and password blank, and I'm going to set a log level of info, and we're going to leave the app service name and the image as latest. So I'm going to go ahead and create. All right. Now, keeping in mind, again, that Dozzle was not an EasyPanel program. The template that was developed and imported into EasyPanel is an EasyPanel thing, but the actual container Dozzle latest that gets used is not EasyPanel maintained at all. So you may run into a situation where you try to deploy a template and it doesn't work. Well, in that situation or that scenario, all you have to do is determine within the container itself why it's not working. Other common problems that we see or hear on the community are, I'm trying to deploy my app and it's not working, or I have this code, it's up and running, I can't access it on the network, or I deployed Dozzle and it's crashing, right? So let me actually show you that. If I destroy this and delete it and do a template and do Dozzle again, and this time I'm going to specify a username and password. I'm just going to do admin. Oop, that did not work. Admin, right? And we will go ahead and create that and go to project. Notice it's crashing. Boom, it's not running, it's a yellow warning, and there's an error message here. Using -- username and -- password is removed on version 6. See this link for details. All I have to do is click on that link, and I have the direct documentation about that issue. Legacy auth is going to be removed in v6, right? What is leg auth? What's the new auth? So you have to do create a data users.yaml, and we just have to create a the username, and then a SHA-256 hash of that password, right? And so in this case, I'm just going to come back here and we're going to stop it because it's crashing. It's not working. If I go to my environment, I can see that I've got username and password here. We're going to go ahead and pull it out. All right. And then we are going to deploy and start it. And just like that, that did not work. Let's try that again. Let's stop. Oh, I'm an idiot. I got to save it first. Don't forget the save button. It's invisible. And then you can deploy, and then you can start. And now it's up and running. And notice we talked about how 80 can be used, or 3000. In this case, listening to 8080 is the port number, right? So just zoom in on there. That is the port it's listening to, an 8080. So if I go to domains, I can see that my internal port is now 8080. Okay. I don't have a way to get to this host name. EasyPanel tries to do dynamic DNS for you to make it very easy. Again, it tries to wrap everything around a very simple wrapper. The problem is, for my deployments, I don't allow direct traffic in. You have to go through Cloudflare. So this host name is not going to work. So I'm going to change this, and I'm going to say this is going to be eplogs.risingtide consulting.group, I think is the domain name that I'm using. I'm going to save that. And notice it's going to fail the Let's Encrypt because that hostname doesn't exist. I'm going to go to Cloudflare again, and we're going to configure the tunnel, and we're going to add, oop, that's the wrong one. We're going to add a public hostname here, and we're going to say for EP logs, risingtideconsulting.group, we want to go to HTTPS specifically in this case, and I'm just going to copy that IP address and I'm going to put it in here. Now I don't have to worry about anything else because EasyPanel is going to handle the hostname matching here. It's going to handle the hostname matching to the Docker container, and the port is 443. So I don't need to put port 3000. The only thing I have to worry about is that my certificate may not be valid because it may not have verified on Let's Encrypt. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to check no TLS verified, and I'm going to save that hostname. Okay. With that being done, I can go to public host names and I can see this. If assuming I wait long enough, I don't know how long it's going to take or require, but I can open that up and I immediately see the application. I can come here and we can see that I'm using this domain name. I can do the same thing here, right click and go to, and it just pulls it right up. I'm inside of the application. Here's Dozzle, here's my Cloudflare tunnel, here are my logs, right? Same exact thing. Here's the latest configuration where I added EasyPanel demo. Where the heck is it? Oh, it's right here. It's one big object. Here's the latest configuration that was pushed where I added EP logs right to risingtideconsulting.group and no TLS verified to true, right? And it works. Like it was almost instant. I can go look at my diagnostics for Dozzle. I can look at my EasyPanel logs. I can look at Traefik logs and so on. Each of the things that are running within Docker are exposed here. All right. So this is a problem because I'm not protecting this. There's no authentication here. Anyone can just log in. That's fine. We know that in order for us to protect it, we need to specify a file, right? Where was the GitHub here? Right here. We need to create a file called data users YAML, and that has to go somewhere in there. So let's look at, see, it looks like if we go to console and maybe, nope, we can't connect to it. Let's just see if that works. If we add a file path, and we're going to say the mount path is going to be data users.yml, and we're going to copy that, and we are just going to paste that in here. Okay, we're going to save this, and we are now creating a file under data users.yml that's going to contain nothing until we start populating it. I'm just going to save and deploy this, and what'll happen is this will go down briefly, and then it'll load back up again, but nothing really changed because the file is blank. This is actually still shutting down, and context dialog exceeded, and now it's stopping. Let's see if it loads. I may just go back too quickly for me to see it finish. Yeah, I'm just going to stop it, force it down. And so now we can see that it should be stopping, running 0. There we go. And then once this clears and the stats fully stop, there we go. I'm just going to go ahead and redeploy it. It'll clear the logs and we'll start it again. And so now we should see it run, connecting without a problem. But again, there's still no authentication. All right, so let's get to the point of doing authentication. Great. Let's go to our templates again. And I'm going to deploy something called, I believe it's IT tools. Where are you? IT tools right here. And we're just going to leave it as IT tools. And we're just going to go ahead and create it. And we're going to go to the project. And so now we've got another thing starting. And in fact, it's up and running already. The only thing I need to do is I have to now do a domain again. So we're just going to rename this ittools.risingtideconsulting.group. And I'm going to save that host name. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go back to my Cloudflare one more time. And I'm going to go add another host name. And it'll be the same IT tools. Nope, we're going to Rising Tide. Wow, that did not work. I don't know what I just clicked on. Consulting.group. There we go. And we are going to do HTTPS, and we're going to grab that IP address, paste, and we're just going to go mark our TLS to be no verify and save that host name. All right. Now, IT Tools is a platform that allows you to do a bunch of cool things. within within a single place, right? So how often are you Googling on how to do base64 encoding or decoding? How often are you doing SHA encryption and things like that? So if we go here, we'll see that it loads up and we can generate a token, hash text, bcrypt, and so on and so forth. In this case, we need to hash text and we need to do it as SHA-256. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna type in the word password, and our SHA-256 password is gonna be hashed. We're gonna copy that, and we are gonna go to our EasyPanel and we're gonna modify our Dozzle file here to indicate the syntax that they have here. So it's users. I'm just gonna paste this for a moment, and then I'm gonna come back here and copy this syntax. I think there's a, was there a copy thing that I just meant? Yeah, there it is. Copy that. And I'm just gonna paste it above, and we're just gonna remove this and put it in here. Now, if you notice, I'm not changing it. It's the exact same string, right? And the reason is because I'm hashing the word password just like they are. So it's gonna be the exact same string. If I come back here and say, you know what, instead of hashing the word password, I'm gonna hash the word Mendy. And then I'm gonna come here and say SHA-256 string. Let's copy that, and let's replace this with a new string at this point. We can go ahead and save, and we can stop and deploy. When this stops, we can go ahead and start again. And now if we go to Dozzle and try to reload, we should get prompted with a login screen, potentially. I may have to clear cookies and try again. Let's see. Or I may have put the file in the wrong place. Let's go to, where are you? Yeah, I'm thinking I put the file in the wrong place, right? So this is where things kind of get a little funky, because where exactly does this need to be stuck? We don't know the build path of the actual application, where it's running, so that we don't know if /data is the right place, or we need to put it inside of var run or var or something like that. So the way this works is, let's do the following. I think I figured this out. I don't really remember exactly how, so let me see where it goes, and then we can see if we can reverse engineer how I figured it out. If I go here and look here and go to advanced, no, it's literally, that is where it goes. So let's try to clear cookies and see what happens. There are nothing in use. What the heck? That's interesting. Let's do this. What does this do? Let's try this in incognito before, just see. Okay, no, it's definitely not authenticating me. Okay, let's go back here and see what I did wrong. So I've got users, I've got admin, I don't have name or email. Okay, so let's try this. Let's copy that, paste this, change this to name, and we will do admin, and then we will add email will be, oh, email doesn't require, okay, mendy@risingtidegroup.net. All right, and so now we've got users, admin, name, password, email, and save. All right, and we will, that's going to data users.yml, and we will save this and stop. Okay, let's redeploy. And let's go ahead and start it again. And if we go here and launch it, let's see. Oh, wow, it is not liking me. What did I do wrong? Yeah, that's fine. Let's close this and try this one more time. No. Oh, duh. One other thing that you need to do. Okay, so let's go back to documentation. Duh, how did I miss this? Once you have to do that, you have to set the authentication to simple mode. Right, so if I click here, notice here's the documentation. It says Dozzle supports multi-user authentication by setting auth provider to simple. In this mode, Dozzle will try to read data users YML. So we need to specify auth provider as simple, right? And this is actually an environment variable. So if we go to, well, it could be a parameter that you're specifying at the time of start, but it's also an environment variable that we can use under supported environment variables. We've got the different parameters that can be called auth provider, and that corresponding one is Dozzle auth provider. So we're going to come here and do copy that. My bad. And we'll go back to our EasyPanel, and we're going to specify this to be simple, and we're going to save. So now we're going to stop, wait for that to finish, deploy, and then we are going to start it again. And now if we go to here and open in a new, there we go. Took long enough. I don't even remember what the password was. And admin and Mendy is the new password. And here you can see my profile. It matched my image based off my email address using Gravatar as the profile. And so you can see that now I have a logout button and it takes me to a login screen. And my username is admin, my password is Mendy, and so on and so forth. Okay. With that being said, so it's just using the data users YML. And really all I was doing was, one, I clicked on the link in the error message first. It took me to the GitHub page. From here, I read this part. I'm like, cool, I got to create this file. I created the file with relevant information. It still didn't work, but it mentions there's documentation. And I was able to click on this link, which took me directly to that documentation, which said I need to run auth provider as simple. From there, I'm like, well, I know the error message that gave me the invalid parameters specified admin and password as if it was a startup parameter, but I was using them as environment variables. And so now I'm thinking in my head, well, I'm doing this reverse engineering. It's critical thinking that goes, is there an environment variable for auth provider? Because I know that there was one for username and password that was treated the same way. And so now I'm looking through this documentation and I see, oh, I got supported environment variables. Go ahead and click on that. And you can see a list of flags and their corresponding environment variables that exist, as well as their default value that occurs, right? So we can change the address if we want to. We can change the auth provider, and whether or not we actions are enabled. I don't even know what these are. But you can see there's a bunch of stuff that we can do, including as well, we can add additional remote hosts into the platform. So we can pull logs from different systems. Notice the host name here is the ep-logs.risetechconsultant.group. You can have other hosts pull into the same place, and you can see exactly what's going on for that. All right, so I can come back here and I can see everything that I've done in the efforts to make this work. And if we go back here, we can see here are the IT tools, and here's the basically the log file for the IT tools container, right? So every container that you specify basically can have I meant to hit templates, will track logs and are available to be retrieved from Dozzle in this case. So let's come back here and say, you know what, I want to run a website, and we're going to build a website. Well, they have a WordPress template. So we're just going to deploy WordPress. We can choose the name, the service image, what type of database we're going to be using, and the database service name. And we're just going to create. And what you'll see is now it's added both a WordPress container and a WordPress database to the system. Now, I promised you earlier that we're going to show you the host name format and syntax and how it works with the project underscore and so on. If we're looking at the hostname database, this is not a typical container that can just run, like if I go to service and add an app service, right? What it is, it's actually one of these containers. These are managed databases within EasyPanel. So if we go back to diagnostics and go to WordPress DB, the information we have up here is different than the information we have over here, because this is a managed database. It's a MariaDB instance, whereas this is just an app or a service. You can still deploy a database using or as an app, but it just won't be managed by EasyPanel. And what that means is with EasyPanel, you can set a username, a password, the database name gets built, the root password is set, You can see the host name. Notice the host name is diagnostics _ WordPress-DB, and you've got the internal port 3306. You also have the ability to expose a port, okay? We're going to talk about that in a moment. But generally speaking, you should never need to do this. Unless you're connecting from outside of EasyPanel, you should never have this set to anything other than 0. You can come in here and set resources, limits, and stuff like that. And then you can also define backups. These are all things that you can do because it is a managed database. If it's just a regular app, you don't have that option. You don't have any of those options at all. Okay, so I had talked about how, let's log into the console here for a moment and open up Bash. So we can see I'm running inside the container at this point. If I try doing like host name, my host name is a randomly generated string, which is based off of the Docker Swarm image and container that's running. Okay, now if I try doing things like ping, I don't know if ping is available. Ping is not available. I think it's part of IP tools or something like that. Let's see if I can install it real quick. One thing to note is that anything that I do inside the container right now is going to not be saved. So is ping a thing? No, it's IP utils -ping, right? So we're just going to copy that, and we'll do apt install and then paste and then enter, right? And we'll do yes. And so now I can do ping google.com, right? Perfect. If I do ping localhost, I'm now pinging 127.0.0.1, which is myself. It's the container, not the host, right? So that shows you what I was talking about before. Anything that I do inside of this container is not maintained. The whole point is it's ephemeral. So I can exit this container, I can stop it, I can redeploy it, and then start it up again. And you'll see that my ping command will no longer work. I'll have to reinstall or re-update to then reinstall the ping tools. So if I come here and I hit redeploy and I hit start again, and I go jump back into console as bash, and I hit ping, command is not found, okay? This is on purpose. The whole point of Docker and the containers is that it's meant to be ephemeral. You're not supposed to have any kind of configuration or data saved within the container. That's the point. And the reason for that is so that if something were to happen to your physical box, you can go to any other physical box, execute the Docker file, and your app will be up and running with 0 configuration required. That is the whole point. Just like I can come in here and I can hit a button on a template and deploy Bookstack or deploy Authorizer or any of these other insanely awesome templates, I can do the exact same thing using command line. And the whole idea is that the data doesn't matter, or the data is not within the container. It's actually maintained outside the container. So if I go to WordPress, for example, and I go to the Advanced tab, I have mounts in place. Okay, this one is a volume where on the host, there's a folder that gets saved and then directed into the container as var www.html, so that my content within my WordPress site actually does persist, but the overall OS and the overall WordPress configuration and PHP configuration and anything else outside of the website does not persist. And then I also have a file. I can edit this, and we can see custom configuration for PHP is here, mounted into a PHP custom INI so that it gets loaded whenever the container opens. So I can destroy this and then rerun it or recreate it or redeploy it as many times as I want, always be able to update it or downgrade it without a problem. My data is safe because it's never going to be lost. It's not in the container, it's on the host directly. Okay? With that being said, EasyPanel, the way the mounts work is that this does get tied to the app itself. So I can stop this and the data is still safe. But if I delete it or destroy it, it destroys the volumes as well. So just keep that in mind as you're dealing with it. I'm going to show you how quickly we did, right? So I didn't really do any configuration here. I just deployed the WordPress site. All I have to do is come up here, and we're just going to set this to be WordPress.risingtide consulting.group, and I'm going to save that. I'm going to copy this and go to our Cloudflare, and we're just going to go and make another new public host name where we're going to do WordPress.risingtideconsulting.group, and we're going to say this HTTPS, and we're going to grab that IP address again. And by now you should be getting familiar with this process over and over again, as I've just deployed in the span of, minutes, basically, 4 different applications that are being used within EasyPanel. All right, and so now if I go there here and just go to this WordPress site, I now have a WordPress install process where it asks me for what I wanted to do and how I want to build it out. Very simple, very quick, and very easy to rapidly deploy resources out onto a single host. With all that being said, I go to my EasyPanel host name, my main host page, and you can see I'm only using 1% of my CPU. I'm using 22% of my memory, not even a gigabyte at this point, just under a gig. And I'm using only 8% of my 80 gigabyte hard disk, right? So I can come in here and I can deploy another project where we can say documentation, and we can come here and deploy a template for, let's do Bookstack, right? And create. I can then deploy AppSmith. Let's create that one too. And let's deploy, I don't know, cal.com and deploy that one as well. Right. And so now I'm like literally just deploying random things that I think are cool. File browser, sure, let's do that one as well. Grafana, great, that's an awesome tool. Ice Coder, how about VS Code, right? Like there's a VS Code that you can run a web instance of. Visual Studio Code Server. We're just gonna go ahead and deploy that. Ooh, I need a password. Okay, we'll do v134679 and just run that. And so now I've got this project. Notice that my memory usage is still only 25%. My disk is 13. My CPU is a little high, but that's because I got some stuff starting up, right? So let that settle down and the CPU will drop, because I'm not, like, unless I have everything busy simultaneously, which is based off number of users accessing a service at a time, I don't need to worry about the CPU running when it's idle, right? So let's go take a look at some of the stuff. Let's go to Grafana real quick, and I'm just going to go to domains, and we'll say grafana.risingtideconsulting.group, and we'll copy that, save that, go to Cloudflare, and we can go ahead and build a host name for Grafana. Paste that, enter HTTPS, we'll grab our IP address, and we will set our TLS no verify and save host name. DNS validation error, I forgot to remove the dot, and save host name. And just like that, I have Grafana up and running. Let's also look at Bookstack real quick. We'll do docs.risingtideconsulting.group, copy that, save this, and we will run over to, we can close WordPress, we'll run over to our public host names, and we'll build one of these as well. Enter that, remove the dot, and choose HTTPS, and let's grab our public IP, paste that in, and flip this over to skip TLS verify and save that. Now, if I go back here and just check on Grafana for a moment, I can go and go to Grafana, and I'm in. You can see Grafana's loading. Ta-da! I can go to Bookstack and pull that up, assuming that it's finished deploying. I don't know if it has or not. It looks like it may not have finished, but that should run as soon as that finishes loading. AppSmith has not finished. It looks like AppSmith may have a problem. We can go ahead and stop that. It's probably a resource limitation at this point. Like, I've deployed, I don't know, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 different applications running on a system that's 2 cores, 4 gigs of memory, an 80 gig disk. Now CPU just dropped. So we can see what's going to look like because I stopped AppSmith probably. Let's look at Bookstack and see if this is finished yet. Connection timed out. Oh, because the host name, it tried to redirect me to the improper host name. So Bookstack needs a little bit more configuration. Let's go to our here. Let's copy this. Go to environment. We're just going to change the app URL to be, we want to do this. Right, and then everything else should be the same, basically. And then we can stop that. I did save it, I think. We can stop this. Once it does stop, we can go ahead and deploy it and then restart it. And then this should load for me. Let's deploy and start. All right, waiting for database to be available. Database is already available, so it should be pretty quick. Let's see. Nothing to migrate. Done. Sweet. Let's go back here and let's paste. There it is. There's Bookstack up and running. All right. So hopefully I've given you an idea of how powerful EasyPanel is. One of the reasons why I like it. Remember, I'm still on the free plan. I haven't even touched anything on the paid plan, which includes it includes Swarm, like clustering EasyPanels. It includes advanced monitoring, backups, multiple users, branding, and so on and so forth. I think branding is, requires a license, as well as custom certificates, right? So like I said, they're actually bringing in and adding features to make it more like a web server control panel, even though it's not designed to be that way, and it's not even related to it. It's really a Docker Swarm management tool that utilizes a bunch of tools in order to make it an easy wrapper, essentially. Hopefully this video is educational for you. Hopefully it was helpful. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything specific that you want to see, any kind of technology or whatnot that you want me to do a video for. Leave your comments below, and thank you for watching.